There was no way he ever thought a tier 1 operator was going to come around and nitpick his story. I'm sure my lawyer would probably tell me not to speak on it.
Brent spoke about something about Rob O'Neill for about 2 minutes. I cropped that into a clip, and I'm not going to lie, I knew exactly what I was doing, and that clip went viral. So viral that it made it to Rob O'Neill's phone.
You want to see the Guinness Book of World Record for the biggest circle jerk? The special operations community has you in for a treat. That's because we are seeing the biggest lawsuit type thing evolve on social media in front of us, and allegedly some papers have been filed with the Supreme Court in New York. Now, let's catch you guys up just a little bit. Very much TLDR. You can watch these videos. I'll place some of the links down below or in the little description so that way you can watch them. But let's start off where this all began. All of this was with Anti-Hero Podcast, which had Brent Tucker and Tyler Hoover on that. They made videos going against Rob O'Neill during this. Now that's crazy. You're like, all right, cool. Well, essentially that circle then comes around and you then have Rob O'Neill, which says to Brent Tucker, Tyler Hoover, Anti-Hero, everyone involved with that shebang, I'm suing you. Okay. Even though now Brent Tucker is left. So you're like, all right. And by the way, I have to give some little disclaimer here. Anti-Hero Podcast is definitely taking a different approach now that Brent Tucker is left, and they're covering more cop-related stuff. And essentially, it sounds like a lot of this bashing, from my perspective looking at this, could have been Brent Tucker's idea, primarily because it's still continuing after he left, and Tyler Hoover and them are not doing that. So essentially, the lawsuit did come out against these gentlemen, allegedly from what I've seen online. Now, on top of that, Brent Tucker, as of my last video, had not made any statements about this and essentially was quiet until his podcast on this past Thursday, where he makes a couple points, which I would say is probably against his legal advice, where he says this.
Rob O'Neill hit me with a $25 million defamation lawsuit, essentially using my own words against me, because I did say on my first live, I was like, you know what? We've been right. We've always been right. How do you know we've been right? Because no one's ever sued me for defamation. He doesn't just look like it to some degree, but he looks like a Temu Dr. Evil. And in his lawsuit, he says that we basically don't leave him alone, which is really funny because the only time the Tier 1 podcast before this, Rob, ever mentioned your name is because when I left the Anti-Hero Podcast, you brought us up.
Yep.
So it was a rebuttal to you calling us asshats.
Never crossed our mind.
You never crossed my mind, Rob, until you started poking the bear. And so instead of taking it like a man, what does he do? He sues. Well, if it wasn't that we had the truth on our side, it would be silly for you to sue us, because I guess he hasn't thought this out. But what's going to happen is we're going to go to court. And all the people who like to make phone calls to me and like to tell me, thank you for, I was there, and thank you for telling the truth. Rather, they're going to get subpoenaed. And they didn't want to come out and make this thing other than a private phone call. And now legally they're going to have to come in and tell you to your face what they've been telling me and tell you what you already know. I was told one of my options is, hey, we can probably get this dismissed real easy. So if you want to move to dismiss it, I'm just going to put my cards on the table and tell you what I'm doing. And I said, no, we're not going to. I'm absolutely not going to move to dismiss this, because to move to dismiss this would be like, I don't want to go to court. I'm scared of court. I don't have the truth on my side. So that got squashed real quick. We're not going to dismiss this. And if you asked me how this is going to play out, this is a publicity stunt, and Rob is not going to take this to court. And mark my words, only two things can happen. Rob will either find out he's made a huge mistake and not let this go to court, and this little publicity stunt to make sure Matt Bissonnette is not heard is over for him, and he will not take this, he will not take it to court. or it's going to go to court and you're going to lose. So either way, it's fine by me. Got a lot of people calling me like, "Hey, are you okay? Hey, are you okay?" I always wanted people to have to come forward, not have to come forward, but one of them come forward and back me up. But we're dealing with a group of men who don't normally want to do this, but because they also care about what's right, they will answer questions and allow me to carry the story for them. And of course, that's already happening. As soon as this lawsuit was told, I was immediately started receiving phone calls like, "Hey, we'll back you up. We'll go to court. We'll see him there. This is crazy."
So that lines up with what I showed in the clip earlier of Anti-Hero Podcast saying other people. All these other people magically are going to come out and say Rob was incorrect about saying he's the one that did it, which I'm like, I hear you, but I'm like, it's been how many years and no one's done that yet? Besides Matt Bissonnette as saying he was one of the guys that was the one that did it. So I'm like, maybe the law will finally decide that if they're actually going to talk. If they don't plead the fifth and say they're not going to say anything, who knows? To do a defamation case in a Supreme Court setting with a lawyer is probably going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, if that's the case, whoever wins this, and if they actually go to court, they will become buried, not only with legal fees, but with any kind of stuff that could have been harmed if Rob wins, where he says like, "Oh, I lost speaking engagements," or "Oh, I lost revenue because of claims like this," could be the case. And I do think that this lawsuit is going to be about principle. Who has the hardest head? Who has the biggest ego? Who has the most to prove?
Matt Bissonnette first, and exactly what he said on the Sean Ryan show. It's exactly what we said on our podcast, exposing Rob, which is the point man read and a whole slew of SEALs moved up to the third floor. The point man read, shot UBL in the doorway, and they followed their shots and they went in, and 4 of them, Rob being the last man in the room, goes in, and the other 3 put security shots into a dead man. And that's exactly what Matt Bissonnette said, which is what everyone else I've ever talked to have said about that. Rob tells a wildly different story. It's not Rob just said, "Hey, I shot bin Laden," which is true. I'm certain Rob shot bin Laden. But Rob's version of the story is this: I and I alone put the first shot, the second shot, the third shot, every shot, the last shot, me and me alone. None of my teammates, me and me alone took care of UBL. And that is one of the most selfish things you can do. And it really goes against all military values. And you act like there's no way for us to find out or prove this. For them to also move slow and you find yourself all by yourself in a room is just, Rob, nothing about your story makes sense. Yes, you could have fooled some of the people in the public for a little bit, but none of your story makes sense. But I'm not the only one saying this. In fact, you act like there's not an internet around as well. And there was this thing called the White House that was around as well. And they have something that's going to put a hurting on your story. And why is it, Rob, the more information that comes out and the more I dig, actually the more I find your story to be false. And there's nothing that I dig around on that I'm like, oh, actually this enhances his story.
Rob's story is not he's the only one. He has a story that there's someone in front of him and then Rob is behind him as a second man. This is getting nitty gritty, but I do want to say Brent Tucker is like, "Oh, is the White House lying?" Or, "Oh, is Matt lying?" That was on the Sean Ryan podcast that came out with his story against Rob O'Neill. So now what we're saying is, wait. The story from the White House and the story from Matt Bissonnette are not the same. They are not. White House has made this kind of be a blank, convoluted thing. They're not endorsing anyone specifically. And what we've seen is essentially these two duke it out. Now, I will say the actions of the federal government to come after Matt Bissonnette must mean they do not have the same story. They don't. And so you're like, well, now we've got 3 stories, which one of them is being silent, which would be the government to talk about it necessarily in full detail of what happened. We have the story of Rob O'Neill. We have the story of Matt Bissonnette on their side of this. And then we also have whoever was around in that compound to say what maybe or could have happened. But we haven't really heard much from those people. I have to agree with a lot of people in the comments that we have out here is like, when is the conversation just going to take place on someone's podcast? You guys both monetize it. You make money off of it, pay-per-view, whatever it is. And you guys go on a battle royale essentially because you guys are not willing to put down your swords and shields. When really this is probably just a conversation. But I think there's too much money on the line with this, which is why so many people are wrapped up in it, trying to figure out what's actually going on between all these books that have been written, all the podcasts, all the appearances, everything else that's gone on. But with this new dynamic and the rebuttal from the Tier 1 podcast, Brent Tucker, anti-hero, trying to back off, say they want nothing to do with it. And I think that's a rightfully so perspective because honestly, Tyler's already moving away from that in the bashing of veterans before this. So I'm just kind of like, what the hell is going on here? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below.